everyone. Today I will talk briefly about a concept that is often confusing for many students. It's Gen-Jie and Biao-Ben. So now let me first share my screen. So uh, same as usual, I will try to be brief, but extremely clear. So what is Biao-Ben? I think it's first we need to remember or understand the definition of Biao and Ben. But more importantly, we need to understand why are we even talking about this theory, right? So there's a little chart. Biao refers to manifestations, and Ben refers to origin or stemming reason, or let's say an origin that gives manifestations. So it's often used to describe, let's say, symptoms or syndrome differentiation. So I give an example here. For example, if the Ben or the origin is liver yang rising, then you can see the manifestations could include headache, tinnitus, or dizziness. And if you see the title of my slide says using treatment principles. So the context that we are talking about Biao and Ben is primarily in treatment principles. So for example, if somebody shows up in your clinic, they demonstrate symptoms like headache, tinnitus, and dizziness. Then the question is, do you treat the symptoms only or the manifestations only, or you want to treat the liver, zang organ, right? So very common example to use this Biao-Ben theory is for acute situations, we are more likely to treat the symptoms first. But for chronic issues or non-acute settings, we will treat the origin first. So this is a brief explanation of this Biao-Ben theory and why we're talking about it. So it's in treatment principle settings. Biao is manifestation or symptoms. Ben is origin, the syndrome differentiation that led to the manifestation. So if you speak English and do not speak Mandarin, Ben might be a little hard to remember, right? Biao and Ben, they both start with letter B. So one of the things I would recommend is think about Ben like a friend whose name is Ben. Okay, and your friends may not be from your hometown. You will think, okay, Ben is originally from, let's say, England or China, right? So you imagine this hypothetical friend in your head, and then remember his name is Ben, and Ben means origin. So you make up your own stories. So this is a sort of a memory tip from Memory Palace, one little trick from Memory Palace technique. So you basically imagine a picture in your head to help you remember, especially for those things that do not make sense, right? You don't know Chinese language. How are you supposed to remember Biao from Ben? So that's how I would recommend you to do that. So this is Biao Ben. The next slide is Gen-Jie. So remember this. Gen-Jie actually is primarily about the tree metaphor. So you may have heard about this, right? You know, previously, for example, Ben, some people translate it into the root cause. I don't recommend to do that because if you include the term root, then it gets confused from here, right? So just think about that as, origin is Ben, Biao is manifestation. In here, Gen-Jie use the tree metaphor. Okay, so what is the tree metaphor? Gen is root, Jie is branches. Okay, so how do you remember that? So because you remember Gen-Jie, that's how it says, right? So of course, the tree grows root first. Therefore, Gen, the first word, meaning its root. Jie, the second word, which grows later, is the branches of a tree, right? A tree has to have a root first and then grow branches. So that's how you, if you are an English speaker, you do not speak Mandarin, how you remember Gen and Jie. Gen is the thing that grows first of a tree. So that's a root. Jie is the second thing grows of a tree. So that's the branches. I hope that's helpful. So So just for you to know, be very clear, Gen-Jie and Biao-Ben used in very different situation. Okay, so Gen-Jie, I said, is treatment principle. Here, its primary use actually is a point selection. Okay, so for example, I heard a story. Somebody said, look, I have a headache. And ha ha ha, it's so funny. My acupuncturist actually started needling my foot, right? So if you want to say to somebody who has no background of TCM or acupuncture, you would use Gen-Jie theory. Ha ha ha, the reason you have a headache and needling your foot is because your foot is actually the Gen, right? And then the head is the jie, right? So by treating the foot, it helps your head. So this is the application context of Gen-Jie is different from Biao-Ben. Biao-Ben used for treatment principle. Here is used for point selection, primarily explaining selection of distal points. So let's take a look at the table. Okay, so Gen meaning is the root and refers to the distal end of our four limbs, right? And then the reason is qi starts from fingers and toes. So to understand this, our qi starts from primarily the toes and the feet, or toes and the fingertips, right? And the one easy reminder is the Jingwell points, right? And that's where the qi most dynamic, right? So when you treat the distal end of the four limbs, sometimes they have very good effect. And jie is the branches of a tree. So it refers to the head, chest, and the back. So the reason why is that the jie, the branches of a tree, because qi travels from the distal end of fingers and toes and gradually travel up to the head, chest, and back, right? So it said qi disperses and travels to this area. So example here is, okay, headache due to liver yang rising. Let's say I have a headache and the syndrome differentiation indicates liver yang rising. I might use liver 3, which is located on my foot to treat it, right? And then, so this Gen-Jie theory, unlike Biao-Ben, is about treatment principle. Here is about using distal points, right? So we learn that distal points, like the points located under the knee and under the arm, elbows, tend to be most effective and they are most commonly used points for this reason, because we can explain that by Gen-Jie theory. Okay, so the last one making it a little bit more confusing. The first slides we talked about, Biao-Ben, sometimes can also be referred into acupuncture, right? So, but in here, it does not specifically talking about, okay, treatment principle. Are you treating the Biao? Are you treating the Ben? Here, they are primarily to use in the same way, very similar as Gen and Jie. So in here, Ben, the root of the tree would be Jingwell points at the distal points, right? At distal ends of four limbs. And the Biao would be head, chest, and abdomen, right? So the reason is the same. So sometimes just to say, Biao-Ben can mean very similar thing as Gen-Jie in acupuncture. So that is what's confusing because Biao-Ben sometimes refers to treatment principle, symptoms, manifestations, sometimes also can refer to the origin and the effect of the head, chest, and abdomen. Okay, so today I'm going to talk, talked about Biao-Ben and Gen-Jie. I hope it has been helpful. Thank you very much.